Thank you.
So they're playing tonight, if you don't know. There's reminders that we moved over to the Criterion, but we've got a little over an hour here. So usually what I do is I start chatting, and then I'll open it up some questions towards the end here. But, you know, we're here at school, and I'd like to know kind of how you guys started out. I mean, did you have formal music education? Was that something you did, or was it just part of your life? And
I had formal musical education growing up in Los Angeles. That Lisa, who's not here, who's scheduled with Mark and Lisa are doing phoners
to support
interviews, to
artists,
support the cause. Exactly. But Lisa and I are the only imports to Minneapolis. We were born and raised in Los Angeles with fathers that were very active, part of the Wrecking Crew, very active musicians in Los Angeles. So I grew up with a big education in music.
My brother's band, older, in the basement, and I was very fortunate that the drummer in that band was actually came from the military, so he was very proficient in rudiments, and that's before I could reach the pedals, I was already kind of learning, and then had some formal education on and off throughout the years, but Ed Sullivan was kind of the Ed Sullivan show was the master class back then. We watched that on TV, watch everybody, and learn from the streets, picking up bands.
Yeah, I had a similar upbringing as well, with a musical and theatrical type family. But my folks had me studying with teachers starting about when I was about 7, and then I went all the way through high school with that, and a little bit beyond with a teacher, but not too much after that. And that was it. No actual music school per se or music college, but lots of year training.
I can speak for Lisa that she had classical training from 6 years old to about 18, so she was very, very structured, disciplined classical pianist.
Well, our program here is as much entrepreneurial as it is about just learning how to play and stuff. We teach people how the music industry works and all that. And so, when I ask these questions, it's not so much to be like, hey, we think it's better if you do or not. It's more just, I'd like to know the path of how you got to where you're at, because these guys are at the beginning of their path. And I think,
and be able to listen to Curtis Mayfield, everything to Yes, and beyond. And of course, biking up to the local record store as a kid was just the way you could listen back then. You'd spend the whole day there and just kind of go through the racks and check stuff out, even if you get a couple minutes on something and just open your experiences. But the cross between rock and R&B was something that always kind of hit in the middle. And obviously later on was the niche that we found in Prince. So it what you listen to and what you like is and what you can play. Like when you said might be totally different things. Something might really move you musically, but you like to play a different style. So I mean, it's keep your palette open, and it's just always good to take in stuff that may not be in your wheelhouse. Just listen to it and appreciate it. So great to, it's different. We didn't have schools like this, and to go to the earlier point, we had to kind of learn on our own. It was a little bit more of a isolated and finding other musicians. And, Wendy found Lisa when they were kids, and then became musical partners as young adults. So you never know who your compatriots will be, but just keep jamming. That's kind of how it works.
Yes, my father was a classical music aficionado, and he went to the University of Minnesota for theater along with my mother, and he did a show spinning classical for a while when he was there, and which is why the classical training for piano came in for me. He had aspirations for me to be more of a classical player. But at the age of 14, I said, I'd really like to look into improvisational jazz now, and I think I found a good teacher. And he said, okay. So they set me up with that guy, and learned a lot from him. But yeah, that's kind of where I got my start. With everything.
That's great.
Influence.
Well, you mentioned Lisa, and you and Lisa are both from LA, and her father was in the Wrecking Crew as well, right? So you guys have known each other for a very long time.
I was still in diapers when I met Nicole. Yes.
Wow.
But it's funny because you do always it's always Wendy and Lisa. That's how you always think of it,
I'm used to those kind of unions. I'm a twin as well, so Wendy
funny
and
that
Lisa, Suzanne and Wendy,
it's
it's all
Lisa,
interchangeable.
it's Lisa and Wendy in the movie, which
Yes.
is kind of funny.
Oh, that's
Yeah, here's an interesting. This
Yeah.
is Prince always referred to us as Lisa and Wendy, and when we left, we were like, we're going to change that up. We're going to go Wendy and Lisa now. It just felt better off the tongue. What? Sounded like what?
Listen here, I will totally agree with you on that.
Thank you.
Well, that's great. So, I mean, you guys were already in Minneapolis. I mean, now we're getting to the point where we'll ask about how you guys met up with Prince. But I mean, I know you were both with him earlier than you got there. So, how did you first meet Prince?
It was kind of a two-pronged day. I was 18 and a half when I met Prince, right out of high school. It was summer out of high school. And at Moon Sound, where he did the demo, I was rehearsing in the back. They had a Studio B that they were just building. And I walked by the hallway, and I just saw the afro. And I heard this music coming out of the studio. The door was wide open, and I looked in there and I saw him there, and I got that side eye we all know now, just kind of like that kind of half look. And I just kind of broke the ice like I did then, and stayed the same for 4 years. Like, hey, what's going on in here? And he looked like Dracula walked in or something. And I sat down eventually, won him over with a few jokes, and then listened to this amazing demo. But then during the day, my job was the delivery boy for Owen Husney's ad agency, who eventually signed him to manage. So it was by day and by night, and for about 7 months straight, it was 24 hours a day. As we know, he doesn't sleep. Back then he didn't sleep either. So. And then from there, it was, I auditioned against every drummer in Minneapolis twice. And then the band finally formed, and we were looking for a keyboard player all over the world, or at least Minneapolis and Los Angeles at that point. And I had known Matt, and I played him the demo early on. And he got an audition, and they hit it off. So it started that way. And the band grew, and I'll just say one thing about the band, since it started that way, and why we're here today. We're here today because if you're in a band and you're in it committed for life, it can work. But if some people have one foot out the door, and for whatever reason, they've got a family or their ego or whatever, it's probably not going to work. The old joke is, by the time you print the poster, there's different people on the band, kind of rings true in most cases. But Wendy was just the right piece of the puzzle at the right time that Prince had been looking for. So even for him, the journey to make a perfect band or a complete band in his mind took 5 albums. And it was great. But yeah, Matt got an audition. I'll let him tell his story.
Well, we met when I was about
We
6
started
or 7, I think.
very similar to Wendy and Lisa. Our moms wrote skits together.
For fundraising events.
Fundraising.
Yeah.
St. Louis Park, yes.
Mount Sinai
Synagogues in
Hospital.
St. Louis Park, yeah. Shtick.
Yeah. So they used to do that occasionally, yeah. And I found a program once where his father and my father were the MCs that night at one of those events, which was, I had no idea until I saw that. But yeah, it just worked out that way. But we were, didn't see each other a whole lot throughout our childhood until maybe, high school period. And then he played me Prince's demo that one night. I was out playing with another group, and he just wanted me to hear it. At the time, maybe 19. But I heard it and I said, "Who's the band?" He said, "It's not a band." I go, "What do you mean it's not a band?" He goes, it's a kid like you, your age, doing everything in the studio." And I just was astounded. I said, that's incredible. Nobody does that. So how can I meet him? Or how can I work with him, or whatever happens with him, please let me know in the future, because I'd like to be involved. And luckily, when the time came for an audition, I harassed him and the manager until I got one, basically. So, yeah.
He was proficient in synthesizers, and OB8s were just coming in, and
those weren't even there yet.
Earlier, before,
yeah.
And
you were using Profits, right?
Hmm?
You were using Profits.
No, there was it was just the earlier Oberheims that were there, yeah.
And so Matt, had those skills, and Prince was, always into new technology, so it worked.
Yeah. So this would have been late 70s?
Yeah, late 78 is when that first meeting took place at an audition. Yeah.
Right. And then Lisa came on board.
She was there about 78 during Dirty Mind.
It was
No, later. Late 1980.
Late in 1980, she came in, replaced Gail Chapman, and she got thrown, just like Wendy got thrown to the fire. Her first show was an outdoor festival in North Minneapolis for an annual urban festival called Phyllis Wheatley. And of course, a couple rehearsals and then a gig, you're just in the fire. But
she's a classically trained piano player as well, so she didn't walk the planet, and still doesn't walk the planet like a rock star. She's in her head and not in her body, right? So there was something charming about that for Prince, who was like equally both in his body and in his mind, so he knew how to present himself and knew how to think about how he was going to present himself. Lisa came to this package as a classically trained pianist who was looking at notation, and then on her off time, composing her own stuff, and gets flown to Minneapolis and does the song Head. And I remember,
which is about thinking.
her line. Exactly, it's about thinking deep thoughts. So I find out that she's done this, and she's 19 as well. Everybody seems to be 19 when they.
Rock and roll's 19.
Yeah, 19. Everybody was 19. I was a few years younger than her, and I went to the house knowing that she had come back from Minneapolis and had done this. And she put a cassette in, and I remember it was in the kitchen of her family's house. Put the song on. I fucking loved the song. But then you hear little Lisa go, "I'm just a virgin and I'm on my way to be wed. You're so full of such a hunk. You're so full of spunk. I'll give you head."
Yeah.
And I'm looking at her going, do you know what you're saying? Do you know? Are you connected to that at all? Are you going to show him a book? What's happening here? And I just couldn't believe it, but she took it on, and she took it on. He had a way, if you get someone at that age to mentor you musically, and you're still kind of like cloistered in this, I don't know who I am, I don't know how to present myself. But to have someone who's so committed to their presence and their abilities and their own value, to have that kind of person mentor you, it changes your ball game. It changes your ball game. It just does, and it did for all of us. So I mean, if there was many messages to give to anybody who's trying to figure out how to present the value that you know you have, but you don't know how to do it, and where do I go with this, and how am I going to be seen this way, and how do I try and find somebody that blows your mind that way and have them mentor you. It was a ball game changer, period.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I think you're hitting on something here that I think is interesting too. I talk about that with students all the time. Is the great thing about our schools, everyone that teaches here are people that are doing it. They've run studios, they're running studios, they're in bands. Everyone here is doing something. I mean, I still manage the Flaming Lips. Derek and Nick Lay play in the Flaming Lips and teach here, and Matt Duckworth actually. So, I mean, that's really key to that. And part of the reason I even started the school was because of the Flaming Lips lawyer would spend hours talking to me, explaining how the music industry works, So I think that's really, really valuable and important to keep in your mind, that it's never bad to sit there and hear what other people are saying about music and watch you do it. So, well, how did you finally end up performing or playing Prince?
3 kids on each side of my family, Lisa's family. We had 3 kids. There was 3 Melvoins, and then there was 3 Coleman kids. And we grew together, went to the same schools, the same doctors, the same friends. And our brothers were in a band together. And we all decided one year, and it was during the Controversy tour, to meet in New York City for the holidays. So my family and Lisa's family, just the kids, we all flew to New York to meet with Lisa and have Christmas. During that time, I had met Prince a couple times with Lisa, but I was very quiet and shy about, I mean, I was only 19 myself, very quiet and shy about, I didn't wear my abilities, my talents on my sleeve. I didn't hand him a CD, I didn't, or cassette at the time. Hey, I was very respectful, and I was practicing my guitar in a hotel room. And he was obviously walking through the hotel, and in the hallway he heard the guitar coming from her room, and at the time he didn't know that I was spending time. He was curious what Lisa was doing, and the door opens, he's right there, and he sees me, and he gets his eyes get really big. And he says, "Do you play?" And I said, yeah. And he sat down on the bed next to me, and he said, "Play me something," which for me, I'm the Warner Brothers frog. I will play me something. Do you know Stairway to Heaven? I shrink. No, I'm not playing now. It's not gonna happen. But I tried to think as quickly as I could, because, mind you, I am a massive Prince fan. I'm 13 years old in a nightclub, underage, hearing the song Soft and Wet and going up to the DJ and saying, "Who's that girl?" It's not a girl. His name's Prince. And from that period on, I was flipped when I found out Lisa was, during my record, it's like, again, do you know what you're doing? Do you know who this guy is? So he says, "Play me something," and I was like, "Okay, think quick. What are you gonna do? You gonna do scales? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Show what you got. Show what you got." And I was like, "Okay, I'm not gonna do anything. I'm just gonna rip a big, fat, beautiful chord." And I stretched my hand out, did a massive ninth at the lower end of the neck, standard tuning, and just went bang. And he stood up, and he walked out of the room. And the next day I got a phone call, "Would you like to join the band?"
That was a good chord.
I still use it on people.
If there's a lesson to be learned, people, I'm just saying.
Save your good chords. Find the ones that break people's hearts and they go, "How did you do that?"
It's not about flash.
No, it's not. He was a definitely kind of guy back in the day. It changed over time. He got all of these flashy, really quick musicians. But this band, we were one note played well. That's what this band was. And to this day, I wear that with a badge of honor, although the doctor over here was the fastest fingers on the planet, still is, but the majority of us as band members were one note played well.
At this point, I want to see, does anyone have a question they want to ask? Now's your chance. You're all too nervous, aren't you? Yes, it's okay. Oh wait, there's one back there.
What was the chord? It was an F ninth, right? F ninth minor.
F minor, yeah. I know the chord.
So
On the first fret, so you had to really stretch.
I'm also, one of the things we're trying to do too here is so much great talent comes from Oklahoma that we're trying to make a place important, And I want to know about Minneapolis when you got there, what it was like, and having, was First Avenue a place you guys already kind of went to and did stuff at, or was that just part of the movie, or what was Minneapolis like? I mean, I'm a big fan of replacements and Husker Du as well as you guys.
You have to go back a generation. Minneapolis had where all the records were distributed. They were signed in New York and LA, but with J.L. Marsh and Heilacher Musicland was basically, which turned into Sam Goody, was all funneled through Minneapolis. And the guys at the top there started dabbling in artists. So in the 60s, like Amos Heilacher had Soma, which was Amos spelled backwards, which is Soma Records, and they had regional charts, so it probably reached to Kansas City and maybe down here, but they were imitating the Righteous Brothers and other acts, and these regional acts started, move some units. So there was a handful of people, including Prince's first manager, my brother David, some people that had knowledge of not, A&R or signing, but just how to record. And I started some studios popping up, and records were being made, and that kind of laid the groundwork for this musical messiah to come. That he fell into a network of, for the size of a city like Minneapolis, with somewhat knowledgeable people, at least enough to get on an airplane and go to LA with a demo tape. So that started that way. But the city, for whatever reason, it does come down to one building at the end of the day, which is First Avenue, which is the main room. You've got Prince and his creations, the time, and then 90 feet in the other direction is the Replacements and Husker Du and the Twin Tone era, and it's just a very unique situation that
That was the 7th Street entry.
7th Street entry, which is the adjacent club. And so there's two major forces of rock and roll at work in one building. Maybe it's because it's 400 below zero there, I don't know.
You guys, as a band, did you write it together, or would Prince just show up with a song? I would imagine you guys rehearsed a lot, and I would imagine some jams happened, and maybe something came from that. I'm just curious about your guys' songwriting experience with that.
I mean, with this particular band, The Revolution, we did all of that. We spent every waking hour rehearsing.
And he never slept.
He disappeared for a couple hours while we were like hanging on a B flat funk chord for a while. Maybe he was taking a nap. I don't know.
Exactly.
But he would leave the room sometimes, and he'd say, "Don't move." Literally, don't move.
Yeah.
Okay. When you're in a room, if we were all stuck in this room as musicians in a writing class, we would all end up coming up with something, right? For me, it doesn't even matter whether someone doesn't actually contribute something that's super vital, like the hook of the song or the chorus. Everyone in this room helped create a moment that happened, whether that one person came with that initial spark of an idea, the energy in that room created something, okay? So if you take that kind of philosophy and really ratchet it up, got these crazy little motley crew people on the stage, Jews, Mexicans, gay, black, why it didn't, we were just a group of ruffians up there. And he'd come in and sometimes he'd say, oh, you know, let's die. You'd hear him playing a chord progression. And then we just knew each other so well and knew at the time what he needed from us, which is another key, really valuable instrument that each member knew, is to learn your leader. Learn your leader. Don't fight against your leader. Add something to the leader. Help the leader become their best, right? So we were the great facilitators. So there was a lot written, there was a lot arranged, there was a lot finished, there was a lot just aped, parroted, perfected. And I had just had this conversation with Lisa when we were flying out here. We were having a conversation about Prince and, you know, events of XYZ happening, and we both just kind of like went, the amount of perfectionism that he had on himself and the control of that perfection was the thing that made him as large as he is, and the thing that ultimately caused this break. And you can imagine the kind of pressure it is. I don't know about you, but do you remember him making mistakes?
Hardly, never.
Hardly
No,
ever.
very
Especially singing. I mean, in
Yeah.
any condition. I mean, pitch perfect. Just
No, he didn't.
Yeah.
It was weird to witness, but then if you really look at it in terms of like maybe a little bit of a psychological look at it, when he did make a mistake, even if it was infinitesimal, like I went to the wrong fret for 2 seconds. First, he would repeat that mistake twice. If you make the mistake, make it twice so it's not a mistake, but you can sort of feel like this fracture, like there would be like a sense of like doom in him. He had a great sense of
penalized
shame.
by God.
Exactly. it was a trip to see, you know, and you just try and like, it's okay.
But if you made a mistake,
That's a different story. That's a different story. God willing, you didn't make mistakes, because if you did, he'd tell you about it, even in front of 80,000 people.
he'd tell you.
Get that spotlight.
And then
Put the spotlight on
afterwards,
them.
the dressing
Afterwards.
room, Matt, I can't have that in my show. No.
Would you get fined? Was it
Oh,
the
well.
James Brown thing where it's like,
He tried docking,
I think
and we all protested.
He was
That's not gonna work.
imitating a little bit. He was imitating
For a
classic.
minute, but
Yeah.
I never gave him the money.
somewhere there's an accountant like, hey,
He
there's
tried to.
$35 owed to us, you know? Wow. So, did you guys enjoy recording more or playing, live more? What was it you liked the best? I'm just curious.
I liked all of it.
I
It
did
was
too.
great.
It was just every day was an adventure. You put it this way: if you were playing live, you were still recording during the day.
That's right.
There was a
That's
truck,
exactly right.
a
There's
truck
a truck,
outside,
all the
or
trucks always
multi-track.
everywhere we
It
were.
was every day was always documented. I'll go back to one. So I met him, 78. He was writing 1 or 2 songs a day from the day I met him. So that was 43 years times 365 times 1 or 2. People ask me what's in the vault. That's the formula.
Wow. So I'm assuming that there's
Doesn't mean everything's Kiss,
right.
but that's prolific.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's probably how you get a kiss. Is
That's
because
true.
you're
That's
constantly
exactly right.
Yeah.
making music and you're always moving forward and you're thinking through things, doing stuff. I mean, with that being said, how many lost Revolution records are there that should be coming out at some point? Wait, what's the name of it? Roadhouse Garden?
Oh,
What is that?
There's probably
tracks.
3.
Yeah.
Three?
There's probably 3
Probably 3.
and X tracks, but like you said, I mean, they're not all gems, and he spent a lot of time compiling records and really thinking about it. So, yeah, there's Roadhouse Garden and a couple other things, but there's a lot of stuff we probably don't even remember that we recorded. That there's so much stuff going on, with rehearsal being constantly documented and everything.
Yeah, I mean, you have to remember, we were also recording things during those rehearsal times, this is the most prolific time for all of us as a band, and for him as well. These 5 pivotal years were other bands' music, other artists on other labels' music, our stuff, films, and the records. And we were the go-to band to help facilitate most of it. Even if it was just a demo to give to whoever, we were the band to we were his band.
Yeah, we were his testing.
We were
ground.
the lab animals for sure. But we also sometimes we had total alternative sets. So we'd run through a whole set of stuff that, that never came out, and then we'd run through the show. So
That's right.
we learned total, complete other alternative universes, plus we'd be the testing ground for, any artist he was working on, and we wouldn't really know. I mean, he'd come in with a song so often, we'd work on it, and then he would not sleep, and we would, and then the next day it's something else.
How could you keep up with the pace? I mean, you talk about all those things that happened in 5 years. I mean, making a movie for most people takes 3 years. I mean, how long did Purple Rain take,
4 months
Yeah.
to film, 3 to 4.
Yeah, it was a 3. It was a
3
3
months?
month. Yeah, it was a 3 month. How do you keep up with that kind of pace? You ultimately don't. You don't. But you have to put your mind in this place. There's a great author by the name of Anne Lamott, and she did a great book about writing and tips on writing, and it was called Bird by Bird. And her father she'd say to her, "How do you write a book? I don't know how to do it." And he'd say to her, because he loved birds, just bird by bird. So basically what that really means is one moment to the next. And that's how you ultimately get through, because the idea of how do you keep up at that pace is the exact reason why you will fail if you keep saying that, right? So you can't, how am I going to do it? It will squeeze, it will still come up. It happens to all of us, it happens to me daily. How am I going to meet that deadline? But the point is, it's like, no, just what's in front of me right now. And that's what you did. That's what you did.
And some people didn't, and some people left.
Yeah.
But our commitment to it, there's nothing he would throw at us that we wouldn't at least rise to the challenge, and sometimes try to do it on purpose, to stay, even with him, which is, it took all 5 of us collectively to, keep that energy, which hopefully, we'll show you tonight, that it's something that was just ingrained, that he instilled in us, and we fought back, and that's what made the revolution special, is we really fought back on an energy level, and more than any other bands from the early days on. It was just kind of and he knew that, and he felt that on, if you watch the Syracuse DVD, you can see that he's just in command of us, and it's all kind of just there at his fingertips, and it's just moving and electric and alive.
So you guys started doing your own things as well, right? So was there a cut, and then you did that, because you've all worked with Prince for different periods of times. Was it your choices to go, what, now it's time for me to make a...
No. He disbanded everybody, and I get why he did. For the very reason we're telling you how available and what we were as a band. He didn't need any more input. Didn't want the input. It's fine. It's his prerogative, and we completely go, little bird, fly away. We didn't want that to happen, but we understood this is what he needs to do now. And the fact was that he didn't want to negotiate a song. He didn't want to negotiate a way to. He was done with that part of his life, and we had to let it go.
I mean, he started out, the story we told in the beginning, this guy in the studio doing all by himself, who's the band, who's the girl, So he was always the ultimate solo artist and could always do that. But he let us in, he needed a gang, and he got it, and Purple Rain was...
We were his presidential campaign.
Yeah. we the Mountaintop with Purple Rain and everything, and 2 albums past that, and you know, even a little bit on Sign of the Times. So it was a journey that I saw him take from the very beginning, and it, like Wendy said, it was just understandable that he took a band leader approach. I mean, Matt stayed on, so he can speak to that, but it seemed at least that he was done dealing with interaction of a group, and he just wanted people to just, here's the parts, and play it, and be the band leader that he became to the end.
No. Well, I mean,
He said it all, right?
well, it's interesting too, you know, the relationship, and I want to move on from what you did with Prince and what you're doing now, but you know, also just how he had to move away from Warner Brothers as well, and you know, there was the Paisley Park label, and I mean, wasn't the Madhouse record one Paisley Park?
Yeah, Madhouse was the, I don't know if anybody's aware of that record, it was here, but that
It's
was.
right there.
Oh, there it is. Okay, so that was like a jazz kind of.
Nice cover.
Jazz funk fusion thing that Prince and Eric Leeds did together. And when their keyboardist decided he couldn't do the tour about 3 weeks before the tour was supposed to happen in Europe in '87 on the Sign of the Times tour, I volunteered to be the guy to go in and take his place. And they said, "You sure you want to do that? Do double duty and play, you know, both sets that night with Prince?" And I said, "Well, I can give it a shot, so you guys can at least present this live." And it did work out in the end, but
So then,
it's a good record.
yeah, I remember when there was 2 Madhouse
Yeah.
records, weren't there? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you're not working with Prince, you know, what you put out the Pink, Wendy and Lisa.
Lisa and I put out a handful of records on major labels and then putting them out on our own. But we have, for the past 20 odd years or more, spent most of our time composing for film and TV.
Right, and you won an Emmy for it, right?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, yeah. So, do you enjoy that?
Love it.
I would assume if you're doing it for 20 years, you know. So
Oh, we love it.
what currently are you working on? I mean, I know you worked on Heroes.
Yeah, we just finished the 3rd season of a NBC show called Shades of Blue with Jennifer Lopez. And we are getting ready to do 2 pilots right now for NBC. And that's where we're at right now. It's busy.
Yeah. Do you like the pace of that? Because I know, once again, that's
Well,
another
like
one
I'm
where
saying,
it's
it's
like
like, how are we going to do this?
you're given something, then you immediately.
We have 2.5 weeks to do a pilot, and there's 5 million other things going on at once, and you're leaving town, and you get a call from editorial saying, we're in post now, and we're going to have a spotting session, which is something you do, and you go in and you go through the footage, you go with directors and the editors and the producers and say, where is music going to go? You start marking numbers. It takes like 3 hours each session. So we want to do a spotting session with you guys tomorrow, which means that's the downbeat. That's when you're on the clock. And then you have to deliver to the dub stage with everyone's approval, from networks to producers to the directors to the showrunners, signing off on your cues. Telling you this right now, I want to crumble. The amount of pressure, but when, thank you. I need that encouragement. But when you have a show that has great narrative and the writers are into it and you are doing something you really dig, which is, it's tough to get those gigs, but there's, for me and for Lisa, there's nothing like it. Nothing like it. We've always been cinephiles and we've always studied everyone from Nita Rota to Bernard Herrmann. And
Do you guys do all the music yourselves, or do you ever bring in
it depends.
like orchestras?
It depends.
Right.
If it's a low budget thing, we try and cover it ourselves. But if it's got some kind of budget, we'll get an orchestra.
Will
And
you write out the scores? And
yes,
everything?
we'll write scores out and we'll get our copyists to hand things out to
So-
sessions.
Music theory can be important.
Not really.
Oh.
No.
There goes
You
that
can fake
class.
it. You can fake it. You can fake it, but you
not
better.
in the class. You
You can't fake it in the class. You gotta learn something. You gotta learn something. But if you're a good grifter, you just need to know how to work your room, work with your musicians, work with the right people that will get things notated, get a great orchestrator that can sit with you while you're doing your MIDI files and transcribe things and help you out. It is a doable thing, and most of the composers in Los Angeles do that because nowadays they're ex-rock and rollers who are sitting in rooms, and that's how they're making their money. And they're not notating. Look at Danny Elfman came from Oingo Boingo. He was an incredible musician, but he had 2 orchestrators sitting with him, and he had Steve Bartek, who was his band member, who was the great notator, helped him write that stuff out. He had it in his head. He knew he's a very Brian Wilson kind of guy. Get the right people to help you and be good to them. Be very good to them. Don't use them. Don't abuse them. Don't put yourself above them. Don't make them a subordinate. You absolutely have to partner with them so that they can give you what you need.
So in LA or Hollywood speak, do they call some people like that hummers because they hum the tune?
Fluffers.
Fluffers.
I see who my troublemakers are.
Danny Elfman's a long way from weird science, I'll tell you that.
But he did Pee-wee's Big Adventure. That was his first one.
Yeah.
Which was great.
Crazy score.
Yeah. Well, what about you guys? What are you doing now?
Good.
Yeah, I've always had an affection for just, after Prince, is just finding new talent, new artists, and, nurturing them along. And
He produced mine and Lisa's first record.
we had a great time. We were kind of, ex-convicts wandering, hiding in the desert, but literally in Palm Springs.
We did.
But it was kind of a journey of just various aspects of the business that I enjoy. I just, Prince's world opened up a lot of people and connections that he didn't talk to, so I did, took a lot of names and just made a lot of friends. And I love nurturing new talent and helping them along. 3 girls from Chicago right now called Moonrise Nation that I like a lot. And so kind of went down and just continuing the journey. I don't know if lightning will ever
You
strike.
also got a lot into the business side of it too. You became a distributor for a while, right?
I'm still involved with Entertainment One, which is a major distributor, and their catalog and putting things together, and large Canadian company with a presence in the global scene now, and so it's just kind of, it's something I started at 6 years old. So you were asking earlier, I started playing drums at 6 years old, and I've been in love with this business ever since, and consider myself extremely lucky on the musician side and finding, maybe the artist of a lifetime in Prince, and this band that we're continuing our journey now is just some of the most heartfelt, gratifying experiences at this stage of my life that I can imagine. I had some health issues, and everybody should watch their cholesterol, by the way. And
and speaking of that, is because you started an organization called My Purple Heart. Is that still going on?
I did. I started out with the American Heart Association. The Revolution was generous enough to come, and we did shows at First Avenue. I did 3 of them. Rudolph King, Brian Setzer. We had some great times. I kind of stopped doing that because those shows are supposed to prevent heart attacks, not cause them. So the awareness, by just creating all this awareness, they gave me an award for 1 billion clicks, 1 billion searches, with the name Prince, the Revolution, American Heart Association. We did a great thing, and actually saved real lives, which is just amazing. So it's ongoing. It probably won't take the form of concerts anymore, but still looking at things to do. I help when they lobby the state of Minnesota for different things. I'll speak and It's been a huge part of our life, but, you know, not every meal has to be fried chicken, remember that.
Yeah. So yeah, much like Bobby, I've been involved with various artists over the years. Just a lot of people in the Twin Cities, and you know, branched out worldwide with session work and things like that. Because you're able to do it over the web now, you're able to just import files and play on it and send it back to people in New Zealand and Australia, whatever. But not too long after leaving Prince, I went to work for Prince's first manager, Owen Husney, over at KTEL Records, which was based in Minneapolis. I became a staff producer there for about 5 years, 6 years. Did a bunch of weird projects for them. And then from there, I moved on to video game music and things like that, and continuing to work with artists and running my own studio. And then about 2.5 years ago, a local company called MobileSoft Corp asked me to come on board to help them with developing a new music streaming service, which has been launching since July, and that goes by the name of MyMyMusic.com, and it's right now it's just focused on hip hop and R&B artists, and they're all unsigned primarily, and it's curated by the listeners, you know, to judge and listen and vote on the artist as they move into the streams. So
Great.
that's what I'm up to these days. Yeah.
So we're wrapping up here. This is your chance. The questions here. Wait. Oh.
My name's Pam, and I'm from Gig Spot. We're a local organization. My question I always tend to wonder is how bad has Spotify and YouTube burned you with their piracy of your rights and copyrights?
I'll
Well,
let you mention that.
yeah, YouTube is more of a culprit than Spotify. YouTube is where it's just a dumping ground for anything, whether it's a dancing cat or, you know, a hit song. So people can put their dancing cat to a hit song, and it takes a long time to find it, and millions of views will rack up, and Google will get paid before you catch it. So, you know, what I think is that there's a lot of floating revenue that Google keeps from YouTube that you'll never see. Spotify is here to stay. It's, you know, it's just kind of, you got to play the game. Unfortunately, you know, one album, 100 streams, you know, 1,000 streams, is just, the revenue is just so low. So that's here to stay too.
Yeah, streaming is just
Streaming
a way
is just
to
a
make money. It's just
yeah,
dumb.
million tough payout. It's just,
Really.
but it's here, so you can't ignore it. I don't know. I don't have an answer for you. It's just devastating. The old model is gone. The songwriter getting 9 cents. Well, that doesn't really work when Spotify's paying 0.0043 cents a stream. I mean, for everybody, the manager, the band, the writer. You know, it's just it's tough.
But you know, Spotify is, from what I know, paying 70% of whatever they need. You know, it's whatever's coming in goes to the major labels anyway. So they're
That's
only,
true. The labels are benefiting.
Yeah, they're benefiting more than anyone. So they're only able to.
Sounds like the same old story
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
Artist is last.
It really is.
Well, it's
Because
just a different technology.
it was 85-15 in the old technology, 85 for the label, 15 for the artist. So Wendy's right, you know, and it's just the same. It's the same thing, you know. You got to go out and play live and to make money, you know. Maybe in the heyday of vinyl and CDs, the artist had a chance, but of course that's only a short window. That was in the 50s, it was gone. 60s, it was gone. It opened up maybe a little bit, but now it's gone again.
Standing up back there.
I play in a local tribute band. Funny enough, YouTube actually gets some of our promo videos we put up with us for making because of the copyright hit. But my question is going through on the tech and getting some of those tones, like trying to figure out the gear and stuff that we use in the records. A really fun challenge. I wonder if you use some tips for that. Was it like the simplicity first they wanted to do, they wanted to write, or because he's such a perfectionist and there's a lot there?
It's all of that. It's all of that. I mean, did you say you were the keyboard player? You're the okay. This is the tip for guitarists. There wasn't special gear. There were Boss pedals. There were Mesa Boogie amps. They were Telecasters. They were Honers. And Prince played easily 11s and bent everything on 11s. Very strong hands. Later, he changed to these weird Sadowski-shaped guitars that only he could play. You know what? Everything is massively, for the most part, it's clean. Your signal, most of it on stage as well, was DI'd and straight to the soundboard. So it wasn't even going through amps to get that kind of clean tone, right? Recording is a different beast. Most of those clean guitars were straight to the board as well. So nothing special about the guitars, honestly. The tones, nothing special. It's the way you approach the instrument and the way you approach the way it's played, period.
Yeah, people have been trying to decipher the secret sauce for a long time, but those Boss pedals were just about on everything, drum machines, everything. I mean, everything was pretty unorthodox. You think it's technical, but we would have a 24-track board, 2-inch tape machine in the middle of the room, no glass, just cords running everywhere. I mean, he was just a very unconventional.
Some of that stuff sounded awful.
Some of it sounded awful, but it mixed great. And he ultimately, like Wendy said, I mean, a lot of it was just really the parts and the person behind it. It really.
He could tell, especially on guitar, if you, for instance, slid halfway up on a funk chord a little too far, he'd look right at you and go, no, it's this. So we joke about, guitar slingers who are really into their tones, and they're like, what do you think is better? Or which one do you think is better? And you're like going, it sounds the same. But Prince could hear that. There's a lot of people like, it's a dead battery in that pedal, I can tell. He is that guy, right? So that's just, you have to play it exactly the way you hear it.
I was hoping for that kind of answer. That's a lot easier.
No, you can't do, yeah, no. And it was very rarely that he had the back pickup with all the treble. It was mostly the front pickup. There you go. Front or middle.
All right. Yes. My question is for Bonnie Z. Can you just talk about the writing River Run Dry and just the process of showing that song to Prince and then getting on the album usually?
Well,
Have you read anything else?
it kind of goes back to your question. I mean, as the band got more comfortable, we were more comfortable. In the early days, showing him your own songs was a petrifying experience because you shot them down, and you just was something if you had he inspired me as a songwriter, and I wanted to certainly contribute that to myself. So eventually, I thought it was a unique song. I thought it had a unique feel, and it took him about 2 seconds. I mean, he heard it and he went, that I want that. So I came over to his house and we took the original 2-inch, and then he started doing it, and then eventually turned into the part of the family album. Claire Fisher did the orchestration, and it was just gorgeous. And I just felt really, the fact that, he changed some of the lyrics a little bit, but the fact that he took 90% of the lyrics the way they were really gave me confidence as a songwriter, because lyrics, as we know, are Prince's deal. And so it was an incredible experience, and really proud of that overall album. I mean, to be on an album with Nothing Compares to You, and High Fashion and Mutiny and stuff like that, it's an incredible experience.
Great. Russ?
Music business students, and my question I had was your experience with
Yeah, I mean, his manager, it was, what was it like to be around management with Prince at the time, and maybe even on our own, but I think that the question probably applies. Steve Farnelli.
There was Bob Cavallo, Ruffalo,
Farnelli.
and they produced Purple Rain. So
It was, they didn't, those guys were very focused on Prince. So we were
Kind of on the periphery.
We were on the periphery. They didn't really spend a lot of, we complain a lot, like, why is there, you're not Prince.
Yeah.
So, but that was their gig, right? And, you know, we saw management work at its full steam with an artist like that. Personally, in all honesty, since that point, I've been through 6 managers, because if you don't have that kind of success, management's looking for their Prince. For the most part, they're looking for their Prince. And if it's just the nature of the beast. If the artist that they're working with isn't bringing revenue, or it's hard to get them branded, or it's hard to do this, they start losing their interest and the artist falls back. So there's a struggle between the artist and the manager, like, you don't care about me, right? You know, you think you have like this close bond with your manager. You kind of don't. You're very lucky if you have a manager who's like, hey man, I was there from the beginning, I love everything about you, and you're my bestie, and we're gonna make this work together, we're gonna climb.
Scott Booker right
I
there.
mean, they did it with the Flaming Lips. It's a different beast. But for the most part, those guys aren't out there. I have not seen that guy in Los Angeles or in New York that goes really to find their Prince and go, we're going to climb the mountaintop together. I'm going to make you and I have all the resources to It's really difficult. You got to do a lot of that work. The artist has to do a lot of that work. That's been my experience.
You know, to answer your question, I mean, we did see, you know, frontline, top of the line management work with Prince. We did get to witness that. They pulled a movie out of the hat. I mean, there was a lot of major stuff that they did once they could get the train going and put on, you know, major shows. And, you know, we certainly learned a lot, but we were more of the complainers, you know.
But I always felt they were, you know, friendly guys, sociable, and, you know,
Yeah, of course.
we could talk to them, but they weren't working for the band as much as Prince. Yeah.
Tom first.
Sorry. I was wondering if you talked a little bit about what you learned from Prince as far as his communication style and leading other musicians and talking to them, because it sounds like he was very
He didn't
ambiguous.
communicate
Yeah.
with words.
Yeah.
No, he communicated with music.
Okay,
So he'd walk into a room, you could tell what mood he was in. We were very, very perceptive. As a band, we read him very well. That's another reason why this team worked so well. Like I say, we were trying to make a presidential campaign for him as well, right? So we had to figure out what's the best way to get him where he needs to go. Listen to the way he plays something, or if he said one word, like, you know, he used to say dig up a lot.
Yeah.
He used to say that. And you knew when that came at you, something big was going to happen that he needed you to do, but not necessarily able to communicate it well. So we had to not talk a lot.
Yeah.
Because that would get in the way of any kind of thought process that he was having. We were very, very silent. During rehearsals, he was really disciplined. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. But, you know, I mean, in a social setting, there was off the clock, there was tons of communication. You know,
Yeah.
that information back and forth. He was very interested in life and what was going on, which added to the next day's rehearsal or the recording session. So it was kind of we fed information, and then, but musically, Wendy's right. I mean, it was just like, you know, if you're with a heavy composer and you're sitting in the orchestra, I mean, tapping the baton, and you just waiting to find out what the next piece is.
And every once in a while, he'd like to break for a little round of basketball, ping pong, pool, and then he'd take us out and play softball once in a while.
Basketball, touch football.
Yeah, touch football, everything. He liked to, be active that way, get us into exercise.
Very athletic.
Yeah.
Some of that answered my question was in regards to like discipline, as far as like with rehearsals and stuff like that, and like what were Prince's views on himself or band members being like under the influence? When was that okay? When wasn't it?
Oh, I'll speak to that one.
Under the influence, do you?
Of drugs, you mean?
Or alcohol?
Alcohol?
Yeah.
Oh,
in the early,
zero.
well, in the
Zero.
the early years, he was really dead set against any kind of substance abuse, even drinking. I mean, when I first joined the band, if I had a mixed drink in my hand after a show, he would say something to me, like, disapprovingly. So, really interesting. But later, he acquired a taste for wine, like long about 85. I know he enjoyed a little bit of wine, things like that.
He used to.
What?
He'd have his glass of wine and there'd be a gold straw in it.
Of course.
So, Jesus, that's so you.
In the beginning, he was just a 17, 18-year-old kid, and he had some definite disciplines, and as he became a super rock star, superstar, he loosened up.
He would fire people who smoked cigarettes.
Cigarettes were
Like there would be techs on
It
the
was
stage,
hilarious.
and the techs would be like spraying Lysol on everybody's pipes and doing this.
We'd look at
check
each
one,
other.
two, check one. If he got near his microphone and could smell cigarettes, they were fired.
They disappeared.
And we would talk about discipline. We would get our rehearsals were very scheduled. We'd be there at 10 o'clock in the morning, and we'd leave maybe 12 or 2 o'clock at night. Even if he wasn't there, we knew what our calling orders were. We'd show up, we'd start running sets, we'd start practicing. He might show up about 2 hours later after we started, and it was, you'd break for a quick lunch, and then you'd get back to it. But there was no time to get high and party. I mean, it just wasn't even a factor. Too much was happening, too much responsibility, and we all knew that, it's diminishing returns once you're fucked up. It's just simply that's what happens. So do what you want off campus, but on campus, you don't do that.
Was there kind of a band leader when he wasn't there? Who was?
I don't know, not really. Not so much.
I mean, we knew what we had to do.
Yeah.
Wendy would run us through stuff, but we kind of operate now the way we did when he wasn't in the room. We just kind of function. We know what we have to do, so we just
You
kind of
have
do
great
it.
muscle memory.
Okay, so what can we expect for tonight? What's it going to be like?
Total disaster.
You've heard it here. Thank you.
It's Prince's Greatest Hits featuring.
Look, we all know he's not here, and we're not trying to, as Wendy says during the show, replace him in any way. These songs belong to you, and they are part of our culture. And the thing is, you hear them, and they're in the form they were created by the people that helped him create them with him. And we just hope that gives you, and we're pretty sure, because it gives us goosebumps still sometimes, that the Baby I'm a Star has come to life. Let's Go Crazy, it comes to life, in a way that no band you've ever heard do it, because it's the original form. So you're seeing maybe the Mona Lisa without her in the picture, but at least you get to see the secret.
How's that for pressure? I want to see the revolution.
But yeah, inspiration is what we're hoping to get people to, all of that.
Well, it's time for them to go to their sound check. I can't